Hey, I'm back, and today I want to show you how to make a filtered guitar stuttering effect. I really don't know what to call it, but once you hear it, you'll know what I'm talking about. This was actually a request from someone, so if you have a request about a sound, I'm not going to promise I'll do it, but if you give me the request, I might, and this time, I am. So here we go. So first, before we get started, let's just hear this guitar track. I recorded this very quickly. It's not in the same key as the original, but it gives you an idea. It's just a simple riff. So it's that repeating. Now, what we want to do is filter this and kind of chop it up. So there's a few plugins we can use, and I'll show you how to do this with two different plugins. So the first one is MFilter. Let me look in here and find it. MFilter. There we go. Now, just go to the default preset here. And what we're going to use is just a low pass filter. So we take this low pass here. Let's set this to 3. I think this is 24 or 36 decibels per octave. 36 decibels per octave. There we go. Now, we play this and we move it. You'll hear. That's what we want, but we want some resonance also. So let's do the same thing and bump up the resonance or the Q factor. So that's what we want to happen, but I can't just, move it here with the mouse the whole time. I need to modulate that. So if you look here with mod 1, I just click clear and learn, move this back and forth. Now I turn it on, it's moving. Now it's moving kind of slow here, so if I click in the middle, I have this. And I don't want it to use the frequency as a, 0.1 hertz. Let's sync it up to the tempo. A quarter note's too fast. Let's try this perhaps. Let's see how this sounds synced up to a measure. That's pretty good, but another thing I want to do is increase the range, maybe a little bit higher here and a little bit higher here. Let's see how this sounds. Okay, we're getting there. Now, the next thing I need to do to get that sound is I need to have like a tremolo effect or that cutting effect. So I'm going to go to mod 2, do the same thing, hit clear and learn, go to gain, pull that all the way down to 24, goes back to 0, stop it, and I turn it on. It's doing the same thing as before. But this time, instead of having this sine wave shape, I'm going to right click and go to rectangle. Now it's a little bit too sharp here. That might cause a little like clicks. So I'm just going to adjust the smoothness a little bit. If I do it too much, that's not what I want. But maybe around like 10%, 7%, that should be good. And the same thing. If I do it now, it's in quarter notes, but that's going to be too slow. I'll let you hear what that sounds like though. That's way too slow. So let's adjust this. So I'll let you hear how it sounds at different lengths. So that's pretty close to what we want. Now that I'm hearing this, I might want to turn this down instead of having 36 decibels per octave, maybe 24 decibels per octave is better. And maybe I can do something else. I can adjust the Q, make it a little bit higher or a little bit lower. So that's basically how you do it. You can adjust other things, however you want. You might want to adjust the frequency range if you think that's too high or too low. It's going to depend on your own audio settings. But let me show you how to do this in another program, MWobbler. I'll do this a little bit more quickly. Either one works. The reason I chose MFilter this time is just so you can see what it's doing. MWobbler, I think, is a little bit faster, at least for me. I can program it faster, but it's not as visual. So we have MWobbler. I'm going to go into the follower and LFO, click on synchronization, set it to 1, go to the filter. Let's set this a little bit higher, 24 decibels per octave, increase the frequency range. Let's listen to this. Increase the resonance. And the one thing that MWobbler has over MFilter, there's a little bit more variation in the drive and saturation that you can add to it. So let's do those. So make sure I'm not clipping. And I'll do the same thing as before. Look at the top here where it says gain, clear and learn, gain all the way down, all the way up. Turn it on, change it to a square wave, sync it, play it, and set it to the tempo. So there we go. We have it working with MWobbler now. They should sound almost exactly the same. The biggest differences are, I think MFilter has a higher number of actual filters. You can use up to, I think, 6, I believe, at a time. Yeah, and you can also use them in parallel, which is really cool. But MWobbler, I think, in general, is a little bit faster, and it has more saturation options, and it has more actual types of filters, although you can only use 2 at a time, whereas MFilter has fewer types, but you can use 6 of them at a time. So there you go. Another thing we can do here is if you go to this LFO phase, you can create some interesting stereo effects. So watch as I increase this, or listen as I increase this, I should say. So that should really be coming through, and it sounds like almost like drifting from right and left. If you're wearing headphones like I am, it's gonna come through like really well. And I'll show you one last thing. So let's say you don't want to use this through the entire song and you just want to use it like right before a drop or something like that. We can hook this up to MIDI and have this respond to a MIDI note on a keyboard. So let me add a separate track, and I'm just going to use this as MIDI input. So input MIDI, all channels. That's my keyboard. Now I'm going to send sidechain here. So now all my MIDI information is going to go into MWobbler. Now the next thing I need to do is go to a multi-parameter. Let's just say this is on. Name this. I'll do the same thing, clear and learn. Go to the wet dry, like this, okay? Now I need to go into attach MIDI controller, turn controllers off, turn notes on, and instead of, here for values, instead of logarithmic, I'm going to set it to off on, and then I'm going to click learn, and just press a key on my keyboard. I'll use C3 here. So everything's learned, okay. And it should be working, but it's not for some reason. I messed something up. Attach MIDI controller. On. Oh, I need to click it here. Don't be foolish like me. Make sure you actually click this little box there. So now when I'm pressing C, it's turning on, and when I let it go, it's turning off, and you can see the wet dry moves accordingly. So now let's hear it, and I'll press C on my keyboard so you can see what happens. So there you go. There's all sorts of things you can do with that. There, I was just using it in real time, but of course, you can do all sorts of things with it. You can record the MIDI or do whatever you want with it. But I just want to give you some ideas and go a little bit further than what they did in the Sevendust song. But feel free to experiment. And if you have any questions, leave them below. And if you have a request, leave it below. I might do it, but like I said, no promises. And until next time, see you.